Okay, students, so today we're going to be talking about verbs in past progressive tense. So we've talked about present progressive before when we put the ing at the end of a verb and we put a to be verb before the verb that we're talking about to make present progressive, which means it's something that's happening right now, right? I am walking to work. So that's present progressive. Past progressive would say I was walking to work. Present progressive, she is taking the bus. Past progressive, she was taking the bus. Present progressive, we are going to a meeting. Past, we were going to a meeting. Present, they are leaving work. Past, they were leaving work. So these are the two different kinds of verb tenses when we talk about progressive, or sometimes it's called continuous, right? So present means it's happening right now in the moment. Past is before right now, before what's happening right now. So this is how we make past progressive. So the first thing we need to do is we need to say who we are talking about. So we can use I, you, he, she, it, we, they. These are all the kinds of things that you can, the person or the thing that you can talk about in a sentence. These are called pronouns. It just means it's referring to a person or a thing. That's all it means. And every sentence needs to have we call it the subject in English. But first, to make this, we just need to figure out which one we want to use. For this sentence, we're going to use I. And you put that at the beginning. So I. The next thing we need to do is have a form of to be, right? So am, is, or are. And we know that depending on who you're talking about, these am or is or are, it changes. So we use am with I am. We use are with you are. He, she, and it all use is. He is, she is, it is. And we and they use are. We are, they are. And remember, to make it past, we change am, is, and are to was or were. So I am becomes I was. You are is you were. And he is changes to he was or she was or it was. So since we used I, we know that we need to use am, but we know that we're making it past. So we need to use was. So then we put was right after who we're talking about. I was. And to make a verb progressive or continuous, to mean that it's an action that's happening, we add ing, right? So the verb we're going to use is take. We just put an ing at the end, an ng sound. Taking. Taking. So we just put that right there. I was taking the bus to work. So this sentence is in past progressive form, meaning it's something that happened in the past. So I was taking the bus to work. That happened in the past. So right now we're just going to focus on how to make it, and in a little bit I will tell you why we use it in English and how it is different from present progressive or present tense or past tense. Past simple tense, not past progressive. So I am getting a new car. So this one is present. And all we have to do to change it to past is we just change this word right here, am, to the past tense version, I was. So it's a little bit like making, let's see, what is it? When you're talking about to be verbs in simple past, like I was walking my dog, those kinds of sentences, we just put was and it makes a past tense. It lets the listener know that you're talking about something in the past. Whereas if you said I am, it means right now. It's present in the moment. So I was getting a new car. The next sentence, this one is in present progressive, and we're going to change it to past. My brother is living with our mom. My brother was living with our mom. So you'll see that when we're changing present progressive to past, the only thing that we need to change is this right here, is or was, the be verb. Is or am or are. Those are the ones that we change to past tense. We don't need to change the verb, the ing verb. That one gets to stay the same if we're going from present progressive to past progressive. My brother was living with our mom. Stays the same. And these two, even though we only changed one thing, these two sentences are talking about different times when this happened. So they're talking about the same thing. They're talking about my brother living in the house with our mom. But it's just saying, it's talking about different times. So that's all the difference is. My boss is standing over there changes to my boss was standing over there. So for this one, change the present progressive to past progressive. So again, we're going to focus on these right here. They are. So they are helping me learn English. So we know that they are turns into they were. They were helping me learn English. We are driving to California. So we know that one changes to we were. We were driving to California. Past. My coworkers are leaving early. So we used the word are, the verb are. That one, again, just like all of these, changes to were. So my coworkers were leaving early. So we know that that's how we change from present progressive to past progressive. And sometimes it can be hard to remember what verb you're using. Just remember that if you're talking about one person, like these two sentences, my boss and my brother, it doesn't say he, she, or it, right? So, but we do know that when we're talking about another person and there's only one of them, like my brother or my boss, we need to use the verb is, the be verb of, which is for this one. For when you're talking about another person and there's only one of them. When you're talking about other people and there are lots of them, it's plural, like they or we. My coworkers is they. My coworkers and they mean the same thing because it's other people and there's a lot of them. So that's why we use the to be verb are, and that's why we change it to were in past tense. So we're going to make present tense verbs, these simple present verbs, into past progressive. So we know that to make them past progressive, to make them a progressive verb, we just add ing, right? Cleaning. But to make it past progressive, we need to make sure we add the were or the was. So for this sentence, we were cleaning the patient's room. So all we had to do was change clean to clean, and we had to add the were, we were, to make it past, because cleaning, just this verb by itself, if we didn't have any of these, cleaning would be present. We need this to tell the listener or whoever is reading that it's past. For the verb work, again, we add ing, but we also add was or were. And since this sentence says I, it's going to be was. I was working late. Live is the same thing. My sister was living with me. So it's important that we have the ing at the end and this right here. So it's important that we have the was or the were and the ing at the end of the verb to let us know that we're talking about the past, and it's the past progressive. That's how we make it. Do. They were, you need to add this, was or were, doing the dishes. And again, it's going to be was if you're talking about another person and there's only one of them, or if you're talking about yourself, like I was, and it's going to be were when you're talking about other people and there's lots of them, or if you're talking about somebody else, like saying you were. That's when you would use it. So for make, you were, we needed this, making. That's what we had to add, is the ing to make it past progressive. Try. I was trying to sleep. So try turns into trying. And to make it past progressive, I was trying to sleep. Say, she was saying. She was saying something. Get turns into they were getting angry. They were getting angry. So you probably have noticed that some of these are spelled differently from over here, and you don't just add ing to the end. Like get is get, but when you spell getting, you add ing, but you also put a little t in here. So I'm going to go over next class about the spelling and how to know how to spell it. But most of you don't need to worry about that very much, because most of the English that you do is you're speaking to somebody and you don't need to write it down a lot. But it will be helpful when you're reading something, because you'll know that even though it's spelled a little differently, it's the same word, just in a different verb tense, meaning it's just talking about doing something at a different time. So now we're going to talk about why we use past progressive. When we use past progressive, we're talking about an action, right? Because it's a verb. Verb just means an action. So when we use a past progressive verb, we're talking about an action that happened in the past that was stopped or changed because of something else. So when we're using it, we're talking about something that happened in the past that either stopped or it changed because of something that happened after that. Or we use it to respond to a question, and we're trying to say, and they ask about what we were. So for example, the example I have is, what were you doing? So somebody can ask you that. All you have to say is, I was coming back from my break. So that would tell them what you were doing in the past and how it changed. So right now, the person you're talking to is right in front of you. So If they said, what are you doing? That's in the present, and you would say, oh, I am talking to you. But since they said, what were you doing? You would say, I was, past tense, coming back from my break. And then when you're using it about a past action, most of the sentences that we used, I didn't put anything at the end, but usually when you use this, when you use this kind of verb tense, this kind of action, and telling people what time you did it, you put more at the end because you're talking about something in the past that changed because of something else that happened. So, for example, I was taking the bus when I started to feel sick. So, you're talking about the past. I was taking the bus. So that's something that you were doing and that was happening. But while that was happening, you started to feel sick. And that's what changed the action, is that I was taking the bus when I started to feel sick. So it lets you know that this happened in the past and changed something in the past as well. So it changed somehow. So, for example, I was driving to work and I got a flat tire. So, I was driving to work. This is what tells you that it was in the past and that I got a flat tire. So, the purpose of saying I was driving to work is to let them know that that was something that you were doing and it was still happening when the next thing happened. I got a flat tire. So I was in the past driving to work and then I got a flat tire. So that's why we use it. They were working, but they went home sick. So they were working in the past, but they went home sick. So it lets you know that something changed. Or if somebody asked, what were you doing? You could say, I was going to the store. I was going is the past, and it's letting them know that it's not I am going to the store, because they said, what were you doing? This is the past. We use it to respond also to questions that are asked, but they're asking about the past. What were you doing? What were you doing? I was going to the store, and that's how we can use it. So here are some common mistakes that people make when they are using it. So when I got my first job, I live in Los Angeles. So this one is wrong. We need to say, when I got my first job, I was living in Los Angeles. So was is in both of these. So both of these are talking about the past. But if you said I was live, that's incorrect. Because live is present tense and it's next to past tense. In order to be able to put a present tense next to the past tense, you need to put ing. I was living in Los Angeles. And this tells us that when I got my first job, it was the first job I ever got, I was living in Los Angeles. So it's telling people that in the past, you were living in Los Angeles when you got your first job. So that's why this one is incorrect, because it doesn't use ing. It uses the past tense, but it needs to have the ing. So that's why that one's wrong. This next one is tricky because it is using the present or the past progressive in the correct way. So this one is right grammatically. It's the correct way to say this sentence in English. I used the vacuum, then I was putting it away. This sentence is correct in English. The problem is that it doesn't, it's not the right way to talk about this kind of thing. So I used the vacuum, then I was putting it away. So that's telling the person that's listening that you were doing the action and then it stopped. It would be better in English to say I used the vacuum and then use simple present tense of the verb. Then I put it away. This would be better because this one is saying then I was putting it away. That one is saying that it's past tense. But this one is saying simple present, so it's saying something, then I put it away. It's telling you the order that it happened. I used the vacuum, then I put it away. I used the vacuum, then I was putting it away. The focus on this one is that you yourself was doing the action. This one focuses on the fact that you put it away. So that's why that one it's not incorrect, it's just not a very good way of saying it in English. So that's the end of today's lesson. Let me know if you have questions.